Welcome back to another edition of the Night Report podcast. I'm your host, Mike Broadbent. Joining me once again is my co-host, Richie O'Leary. Got a jam-packed pod for you guys today. We're back from day one of Rutgers spring football practice. Richie has everything that happened today that he's allowed to talk about, everything that Greg said at the podium, everything that he heard while he was there. We also have some updates on where Rutgers might be playing in terms of an MTE tournament next year. And we have a bunch of Rutgers portal updates for the basketball front. So just strap in because we got a lot to talk about today. First, our presenting sponsor for the podcast is Night and Day Apparel. Calling all Rutgers students, alumni, and fans. Are you looking for new and unique Rutgers merchandise? Night and Day Apparel has you covered from t-shirts to hoodies, drinkware to pet accessories. Night and Day focuses on providing the Rutgers community with exclusive, one-of-a-kind tailgating products. Be sure to check out the links in today's podcast description to their website and social media so you can stay on top of everything Night and Day, including new merch drops, promotional announcements, and more. Shop now and keep chopping.
I will say a lot of people have DM'd us about what their purchases, and everyone's been pretty happy between the hats, between the shirts, between, I believe that is right there, a Night and Day Apparel shirt that you have on.
This is a Night and Day Apparel shirt, yeah. And actually, I like the logo on the back way more. I don't know if you can see that.
Ooh,
it's like an older.
Okay, yeah. I always like that logo, like the full-on write-out of Rutgers.
Yeah, like the flying script I like a lot, and that looks like an old like postcard you'd get from Rutgers.
Yeah.
But
it's pretty cool.
I really like the shirt. This is actually the first shirt I ever bought from them. So
yeah, a lot of good stuff on there. Rutgers Rivals promo code 10% off. Boom, done.
Additionally, we are sponsored by the Cut app. I love betting and everything to go around with betting. Have some bets on the Cut app for the upcoming tournament games on Thursday. You can bet really on anything there, sports games, you can make custom bets with your friends. It's a peer-to-peer social betting app that's legal in 40 plus states. It has customizable odds, tracking capabilities, and an entire social network with group chats, user profiles, and rewards. All the payments are made through the app. You don't need Venmo or anything like that to square up with your friends or people you're competing with. You can use the promo code BelieveRutgers, that's BLEAV Rutgers, for a 10% welcome bonus. Don't forget to use that promo code when you make your first deposit. Put your money where your mouth is. All right, so we do have a ton to get to today, starting with football news. So I think the biggest news item that came out of camp day one today is Tyreem Powell has torn his Achilles. Apparently he tore it sometime in the offseason while training. What are you hearing about Tyreem Powell?
So it sounds like it was in winter conditioning. He was working his way back from the wrist/hand injury, whatever you want to call it. Obviously, you could still do a lot in terms of workouts and conditioning while having that injury. But yeah, it sounds like he just tore his Achilles. It sounds like it was in January. I don't want to say for certain, but it was definitely during winter workouts. It sucks. It does hurt a little bit. Greg was pretty adamant, though, that he will be back and that he will be back for the start of the 2024 season. I personally don't think that math adds up correctly, but I guess like if you think about it like a Kevin Durant type situation, he came back quickish, I guess. He did sit out a while, though, too. I just never seen an Achilles injury where you come back within like what are we talking now? Like a 7-8 month span? Like that's a lot for a guy with an Achilles injury. Jeremiah Williams came back technically after a full year because he hurt himself prior to the season and he looked like he was full speed in training or not training camp. I guess preseason camp, whatever you want to call it for basketball. So I don't know. It definitely hurts. It definitely stings. Now everyone's like, oh, perfect. Like Moses Walker can step up. That's okay. Moses Walker's nowhere near the coverage linebacker that Tyreem Powell is. This is where I think like an Abram Wright can kind of step up. We saw glimpses of him in the Pinstripe Bowl. I think he's going to have a pretty big role this year. This is going to be interesting to see how this all plays out. Luckily for Rutgers, their first test isn't till week 3, really? Their first real test, I should say. Because week 1 is Howard, so you can at least work them in maybe a little bit. Week 2's Akron, also really bad. But the MAC teams are dangerous against the Big Ten, so don't ever count them out. Mm-hmm. It's also Joe Moorhead, great OC. So you really don't need them back till the 21st, and you get a bye week early on September 14th that weekend. So that's huge. But yeah, no, definitely kicking the nuts and definitely a shock to everyone. I saw like the other media guys' press faces, like when he announced it. I'm like, do you guys know that? You guys know that? And they're like, no. And I'm like, oh, well, all right. So definitely a little bit of a shocking news story drop today.
Yeah, there's also, it wasn't clear the degree of an Achilles injury he had. They didn't say it was a full rupture, which is the most extreme, which is considered a grade 3 tear. Grade 1 or grade 2 tears sometimes require surgery from what I'm reading here, but obviously would have a much shorter recovery time.
Mm-hmm.
It sounds like 9 months is the typical recovery time for a strenuous sport. So it does kind of fall in line, January to September. And obviously, he's a high-level athlete, so he's going to probably have a quicker recovery time than the average person. And he's probably got better access to doctors and a pretty strict regimen for recovery too. So I think he's got a lot going his way, but obviously not the news you would hope to have on day one of camp. But
so my rebuttal to that, real quick. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. But my kind of rebuttal to that, you said 9 months is usually the recovery.
Sounds like.
That means no training camp, probably.
Yeah.
So, I mean, if you're not doing training camp, how ready are you going to be? Like, you can't just, you're healthy. Go ahead. Go. You're fine. Like, no, you need to work your body up for that.
Yeah, there's a lot of new techniques that are being developed in Achilles injuries, too. And I only know this from, like, watching from afar the whole Aaron Rodgers thing. Aaron Rodgers had not an experimental, but a very cutting-edge procedure where, like, they typically in an Achilles injury, if you think of it like a rupture like this, they only have one anchor point in which they heal the Achilles, so it's just right there.
Yeah.
Rodgers, they do this like threading where they have 2 points where they can heal, so it kind of heals like a loaf of brioche where it kind of like goes over top of each other. So apparently they found ways to heal Achilles injuries quicker, so maybe that's what he had done. But obviously it's still not an injury you want to have heading into a big season. So
yeah, it hurts because he was playing like their best player on defense last year at moments. Yep. You could actually argue before the injury he was their best player on defense. So
I think you asked at some point, like, who do you think are the top 10 players returning for Rutgers? I think somebody asked you about it from
one of those magazines, Lindy's, or I forget which one it was. Yeah, I think it was Lindy's.
So I had Tyreem Powell as the second best player on the team, only behind Kyle Monungai. Like, he, to me, is probably even better than him, but won't have as big of an impact as Monungai, just mainly because Monungai is the primary driver of the offense. So
yeah,
but anyway,
it was Lindy's, by the way, just to confirm.
Lindy's, gotcha.
So if you guys get that magazine, I gave the info, so it's a good magazine.
We had some additional information. There's a bunch of position changes. Let's just go through them one by one and kind of give a few notes on everything. So
yes, sir.
Do you have your position changes in front of you from?
Got them all pulled up right about. Nope, don't have it pulled up yet. I lied. Where is it? Damn it. Got it. We're good. All right. Do you want to just start or?
Yeah, just go through them.
Oh, okay. Number one, Thomas Amankwa. This was the most interesting one, and kind of, I feel like we hinted at it, kind of told you so in our last podcast. So if you weren't listening in our previous podcast, we did hint at it. We did say it was coming. He's moving over from DB to safety. Now, there's a couple things that are interesting here. He was a pretty good wide receiver in high school.
Wide receiver.
I'm sorry, DB. Yes, yeah, he was a safety. Sorry. There's a couple interesting things here because he was a DB or a wide receiver and a DB in high school. For Hillsborough, he did a little bit of both. He was actually a full-blown stud in high school. Just looking now, he accounted for over 2,000 yards of total offense in high school as a senior and 27 total touchdowns. He had 36 catches, 853 yards, 12 touchdowns. Also ran the ball a ton. Ran for over 1,000 yards there too. Absolutely crazy offensive freak. It's one of those guys where you get him to campus and then we'll figure it out later type situation. This is the figure it out later because now they're like, all right, hold on. Maybe you're better at receiver. We can kind of fix this a little bit. Now he's going to enter a very deep wide receiver room. I don't know how good they are overall, but it's a very deep group. It's going to be intriguing to see where he slots. Could he make some noise? Is he going to surpass anyone? I don't think so. I think this year is more so about learning the position. But him moving over to from a safety to wide receiver makes you question the safety depth, right? No, not really. And that's where this comes in. Sage Colgis has made some serious strides, we're told, this offseason, and has made some serious noise. He's packed on the muscle. He's always had the strength and the weight there, kind of. He was kind of close last year. Came in training camp, like a last-minute addition. He was a 5.6, 5.7 3-star in high school.
He reclassified in the summer and joined it as a spring practice enrollee. Yep.
Yeah, so they're very, very high on him. He played a lot of special teams last year, and that's kind of what you see with Giano type dudes. They go play a bunch of special teams, and then they're probably a contributor to next year. I expect him to be the backup there at safety. I was told he's even pushing like some of the starters, which is good competition no matter what. I don't think he ends up taking a starting role, but I think the fact that he's pushing is huge, and it's only going to help make everyone better. Competition, blah, 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 makes everyone better. Yeah. So that was a cool one. I thought that was interesting. Now, what does that mean for the DB room? Now, they're not getting one, they're not getting two, they're getting 3 new additions to the DB room. Isaiah Crumpler, originally signed as a wide receiver, is coming in as a defensive back. I'm told they expect him to play a lot of special teams this year. Hint, hint, see him next year. He's going to be at safety. Voy Nakun Jr. Was a little dinged up last year at receiver, so we never really got to see his potential, but they're very high on him. They always liked him out of Orlando Christian Prep down there. Thought he was a little under the radar type get. Kind of reminds me of a little bit of a Rashad Rochelle guy where it's like, we don't know where your role is, but you're super athletic. We can probably figure something out eventually. He's going to be at DB, moving over from receiver. And then the most intriguing one of the 3 for me is Jesse O'Fury. Jesse O'Fury was at one point taking 1s and 2s reps in training camp. Maybe not training camp, maybe it was spring camp. It was one of the camps. But yeah, he ended up getting hurt, ended up missing the beginning of the season, and now he came back towards the end, and you saw him start to get a lot more reps. Even the Pinstripe Bowl, he got a lot of reps. But he's going to move over to DB, and now people are like, wide receiver 1, what do you? He's going to DB? That doesn't make sense. Well, I'm going to tell you right now, apparently he doesn't have the best hands in the world, whereas Tom Smockwood does. So it's like, hey, hear me out, flip-flop. Let's see if we can make this work. It's worked in the past. I mean, Mohamed Sanu is probably the most notable one. Came in as a safety. Ian Strong, most recent one, came in as a safety. Now wide receiver. Am I missing one? Oh, I'm missing one. Kenny Fletcher technically is switched to tight end. Greg actually went out of his way to mention him when talking about the tight ends. Mentioned him and Mike Higgins. Later on, he ends up mentioning Victor Konopka in the press conference video, which if you're on YouTube, you can just go check that below. But it sounds like it's going to be Fletcher and Higgins fighting for that tight end 1 spot. I don't have any faith in that group whatsoever, considering Kenny was playing defensive end and Higgins was a freshman last year. But he sounded like they have some potential. I think you still go get one in the portal, but that's just me. And I think that's all for the position changes.
Yeah, a lot of them, and this is always the time of year where there are a lot of position changes, especially for young guys.
Yep.
Almost, I would say 90% of the position changes occur either during their first season or after their first season. So none of these should be a surprise if you've been following along for long enough. They're just a part of the game and a part of college football in general.
Yep.
So we got the position changes. We also had some additional departures and medical retirements. We've already gone over the Jacob Allen one. We talked about that yesterday. Who else medically retired and who else departed who was a starter last year?
Yeah, so let's just start with the medically retired guys. Joe DeCroce. I don't know. DeCroce. We'll go with DeCroce. That sounds about right. Offensive lineman 2022 class. That is now the 3rd offensive lineman from that recruiting class that had a they considered a star-studded recruiting class for offensive line. I think they brought in 7 dudes that year. 3 of them have now medically retired as he joins Jacob Allen and Nelson Monegro as medically retired. DeCroce got hurt his senior year of high school and was never able to really bounce back. It sucks because I actually really liked his tape. I thought if he played at any other school, he would have been a lot better or would have had a lot more offers. But he did have some good ones. It's not like he was a nobody. He had Wake Forest, West Virginia, Virginia Tech, all the basic mid-Atlantic schools. And then Jake Eldridge, the long snapper, retired. That one, I don't want to say it's super shocking, but he really wasn't playing much. I don't know the extent of his injury and all that, so I don't want to talk too much on that. But I don't think he was ever going to play at Rutgers. And the fact that they went out and grabbed a transfer portal long snapper on scholarship tells you all you really needed to know. So this one's probably been well known since that Austin Riggs commitment, who hopefully there's a slight chance I was told I might be able to get to talk to later this week. So I'm intrigued to hear his backstory because he's done a mission over in I forget where he was, somewhere overseas. But he's obviously from BYU, Utah, blah, blah, blah. But yeah, those two have medically retired. And then the most surprising of the roster changes, Flynn Appleby, starting punter, is no longer on the roster, has decided to hang up the cleats. Going to go back home, I believe, from what I was told. He is a Australian native, if I recall correctly.
Yep, yes.
So yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how they fill that void. But Greg kind of tipped his hand a little bit in the press conference and said, like, yeah, we have another Australian punter coming in. And it's like, oh, tell me more, sir.
Mm-hmm.
So expect some news on that front. It will unfortunately not likely be Michael Harstorn, who is the sophomore walk-on punter, but he will probably be the backup. But yeah, so that's a lot of changes today. Very interesting day.
A lot of changes. Yep, busy first day. How are they going to structure these practices? Are they kind of just swapping in and out a lot of guys at first team reps? Or have they said anything about that?
So Greg said a couple different things. In his press conference, he said it's more like, I forget the name of it. I'm just going to say it's called twofers. It's not really that, but it's like 2 here, 2 there, 2 here, 2 there, swap. Now, in terms of like the position battles, I'm told it's going to swap every day, basically. So like, for example, quarterback, Kaliakmanis and Wimsatt are just going to go back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. I really don't think the other two are in the competition. Could they be? Maybe down the line, but I think that's more of like a competition between those two for QB3. Could one of them push for QB2 by this time the season's over? I think 110%. But for now, it's probably just going to be those two, and that's kind of why those two were the two allowed to talk today in terms of quarterbacks. Usually you get them beginning camp. You get to talk to both of them. We'll have more on Kaliakmanis and Wimsatt later. By the time you're listening to this, it's probably already on the boards and on the site and all that. But yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how this plays out. I know they got both are completely different quarter, maybe not completely different, but they both bring different things to the game. So we'll wait and see what happens there. But it's day one. They're in spider pads. Like, you can't read too much into it. Like to put it into context, like I was told the offensive line were debating if they should wear knee pads today or not. If they're not wearing knee pads, that tells you all you really need to know about day one.
Yeah, it's basically a walkthrough.
Yeah, but that being said, I thought it was going to be a walkthrough. We were supposed to end, or they were supposed to end at like 11:30ish. They didn't get done till like 12:30. So Greg just kind of kept them out there for a while. I don't know if it's like day one, like you really stick it to them. Let's get them today.
Yeah, could be.
Yeah, so it's fun.
Last thing I have on the football front, we had 2 players speak today to the media. You had Gavin Wimsatt and you had Athan Kaliakmanis. I thought it was interesting. They had both of the likely competitors for the starting job talk on the first day. I think that's probably the way you should do it, in case anybody really pulls away. You wouldn't get the same kind of responses from somebody in week 4 camp when they know they probably don't have the job than week 1.
Yep.
But what were some interesting quotes from both Gavin and from Athan in their press briefing today?
Yeah, I mean, they both made it pretty clear that, like, hey, we're here for each other. I thought it was really cool that Athan went out of his way to say, like, Gavin, like, literally, I can never say literally, took him under his wing and, like, kind of, like, brought him into the group and was, like, super friendly with him, just kind of, not just in football-wise, but invited him into his friend group, and now they're all super close and blah, 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 quarterback room, yada, 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 all that good stuff. They just said they're both really super competitive. They go, we're really not competing against each other. We're kind of competing with each other. We're making each other better. Blah, blah, blah. I love everybody. I'm trying to think. We just pick each other's brains. Now, when we talked to Kaliakmanis, the cool thing that he brought up is, and we kind of knew this, I guess, but hearing it out loud just sounds better. He's like, it's really cool. So I get to train, like, study with my brother. So one of my brothers, the wide receiver on the team. So now I can go like, oh, if this guy hits this and this guy's covered, what route do I hit? He can go to bounce it off his brother and be like, oh, if I'm the X receiver, like I'm hitting this route, like you got to hit me here and hit me there. And it's really cool how they can just pick like off of each other and kind of just figure out everything. But yeah, no, I thought it was a pretty good day talking to both of them. I thought it was cool that Kaliakmanis kind of finished his thing. He's like, I came here to win, and I'm going to do whatever it takes to win. I'm going to put my body on the line if that means getting a win. And I was like, all right, that's a good quote, man. Like, I might have to make a little graphic of that one. Like, that was good.
That is good.
But overall, nothing too crazy between the two, and they're both media trained, so you're not going to hear anything super insane. And if they do, it might get cropped out.
Yeah. I don't expect anything inflammatory or in any way controversial to be something they include in the recordings they send over, which, they didn't say anything crazy to begin with. So
nope.
It is kind of what it is there.
Yeah.
That is all we've got on football for right now. Obviously, there's practice 2 to 3 times a week. I think when's the next practice for football?
Thursday. We'll be talking to Kirk Karaka. So that will give him a couple practices to figure out what the QB room's starting to look like a little bit. Maybe not. It's still spider pads this week. I was told next week you have to do 3 withouts with spiders, and then you can go to full pads. They might not do that till like Tuesday or Thursday next week. So we'll see.
Yeah, so we will have a pod probably after every practice with everything that happened. So just stay tuned to your podcast feed. Football is ramping back up, but we have a ton of basketball stuff to talk about. First thing is first, though, there was some news that was kind of reported about a second MTE basketball tournament that Rutgers could be affiliated with. It's the Cayman Island Classic. Their website even has Rutgers listed as one of the competitors in this tournament where you can buy tickets for. What are you hearing on the Cayman Islands Classic and where Rutgers is going to be playing their MTE event this year?
I would not be booking tickets to that right now. I would, Aaron. I saw you post it. Like, I'm just gonna say it. I would not. I don't know if you bought them or not, but I would try to see if that was refundable. Now that's there. Apparently, these two tournaments are at the same time. It sounds like the Cayman Islands was Rutgers' backup plan a little bit to the Vegas thing, whereas the Vegas thing is the majority. And look at that tournament field in both of them. You can compare the two. There's a significant difference on top of the fact that you're getting $1 million. And how do you not do that?
The Vegas tournament field has not been announced. It's the one that's being rumored anyway is basically all super high level teams like Dukes and the Kansases of the world. I don't know if Kansas, but I know Duke was associated with it.
Duke, Virginia, Florida Atlantic. There's another big name. I can't remember. But whatever.
And primarily, this is a tournament, guys, that the staff has to prioritize because of how much money is involved. Like,
yes, big time.
The $1 million number that they're talking about, I've heard, is legit. And you get $1 million for winning it. So this is potentially something that could bring $2 million into the Rutgers NIL fund, which I don't need to tell you is massive. So this is very important. Like, you'd only go to one of these each year. So if something catastrophic happens where this tournament is no longer on the table, the Vegas tournament, that is really the only way I see the Cayman Islands Classic being a legitimate option for Rutgers. It is squarely Plan B right now, and I would say it is a very distant Plan B at that.
Yeah. Don't get me wrong. I would love to go on a work trip to the Cayman Islands.
Absolutely.
But we're going to have to settle for the craps table at MGM or Hard Rock or wherever you guys are staying.
Oh, no.
Darn. Imagine Pike will just throwing dice with us.
That's going to be such a fun trip if it ends up happening, which I do feel good about right now. But it's, again, not announced, not finalized. But I do feel good about the Vegas tournament for Rutgers. Everybody needs to go to that. That is going to be one of the coolest road trips ever if you're a Rutgers sports fan. So I cannot say this loudly enough. You need to be there if you're a Rutgers fan.
Oh yeah, if they can get a big fan base there too, it's a game changer.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So that is the tournament update. The next update we have a lot of news swirling around Gavin Griffiths potentially entering the portal. Will he? Won't he? Let's kind of give an update of where things stand with Gavin.
So he was supposed to meet with Pikel yesterday. I don't know if that happened or not officially. I'm still trying to work on confirming that. Pikel's obviously also very busy with building this team because there are 4 open spots right now. 3 technically will be 4. Which we're still waiting on that news too, actually. But yeah, it's insane. It doesn't sound like it's NIL related. It sounds like it might be playing related and where his role is. And I think that's fair. because like is Gavin Griffiths? Well, number one, let's look at last year. He didn't play a lot. He had a significant gap during the middle of the season where he was playing like 10 minutes a game, maybe less.
Yeah. Yep.
Obviously changed towards the end of the season. Like he started like when everything was kind of just down the drain. It was like, all right, here, just go out there and take some shots. He had his moments. He had some great moments and some really bad moments. His shooting percentage wasn't what he was hyped up to be by any means, but we'll wait and see what happens. And then if you look at his role next year, it's probably not a starter. My starting wing is probably Ace at the 3. And if they get the Martini kid at the 4, and then if I get a starter, he's not going to play the 5. He's not going to play the guards because the 2 guards are Jeremiah and Dylan. So he's probably, I hate to say, he's probably not a starter next year. So it sounds like he's really concerned with his role and where he's going to be, which is fine. But I also can't wait if I'm Pikel. I need I'm sorry, but I need an answer like ASAP because if I need to go get another backup, then I need to go get a backup. Like that's just, I need to know. So it's we're just kind of in wait and see mode. He's expected to meet with Pikel soon if he hasn't already. I haven't been able to confirm either way. But keep an eye out for that because we'll probably hear one way or the other relatively soon.
Gotcha. We will be staying tuned to that. Hopefully we get that news as soon as possible because Pike needs to know. He needs to know who's in and who's out, and I don't think he's going to be screwing around this year in terms of having guys kind of wait it out and see when they finally make a decision. I think we'll hear something relatively shortly about this in terms of getting a final answer.
That's what it sounds like, yeah.
So you mentioned him in the Gavin update, Zach Martini. What are you hearing about Martini and his kind of recruitment by Rutgers?
Shit, I should have went and made a martini glass. I'm going to do that when the instant reaction. I'm going to go make a martini over there. I'm not actually going to make a martini. I'm just probably going to throw like a double shot in the glass. But that's basically what a martini is, right? Isn't that essentially it?
Yeah, I think it's like vodka,
olive juice,
and stuff.
Yeah, like that. I'm just going to ignore the rest. It's just vodka. That's fine. But yeah, it sounds like there's a really good chance he's going to end up at Rutgers. I know he was considering some A-10 schools as well. The names that we've seen so far being mentioned, where the hell was it? Where's my hoop scoop thread thing? Duquesne, Davidson, St. Joe's, Wisconsin was talking with him, but it sounds like they're probably on the outside looking in. They also have a couple other bigger targets out there, so it's not too shocking for Wisconsin. But it sounds like Rutgers has a really good shot. It sounds like he met with Pikel. Sounds like things went over pretty well. So, like, again, Pikel's a busy man, dude. Like, between the Griffiths thing, between scheduling, like, he's got a lot on his plate right now. And it's not just him. It's every coach in college basketball. But when you have to fill this many voids, you kind of need answers quickly. So I expect Martini's decision to come rather sooner than later. I don't have a timeline, like a set date or anything, but it could come by the time this pod's over, because that's usually how those things work.
Yep, and that is unfortunate, but that's kind of just the way things are traditionally for us.
Yep.
I also feel really good about Martini. He met with Pike. Seems like the meeting went well. He's a New Jersey guy. He went to Gil St. Bernard. He, from what I understand, was a Rutgers fan growing up. He's been to a lot of Rutgers sporting events. So this is a guy who kind of makes sense with. I think the NIL also makes sense here. But we just gotta wait and see. I do expect to get some clarity on this in the short term.
In
the next,
hopefully sooner.
What would you say, about next week? We should expect to hear something?
I'd say probably. I think that's fair.
Yeah, so stay tuned because we might have another podcast in your feed in the near future regarding Zach Martini. New name popped up today out of the portal, who has Rutgers who has ties to the team. I want to say ties to Rutgers. This is Dante Maddox Jr. He is a combo guard out of Toledo. He is originally from Chicago. He started out his college career at UC Santa Barbara, I believe, and then he transferred ahead of last season, I guess 2 seasons ago, to Toledo. Toledo has won back-to-back MAC regular season championships. This is a guy who is a dead-eye shooter. So he's taken 321 three-point attempts the last 2 seasons combined, and he's shooting 42.4% on those threes. This past season, he shot 86% from the free throw line. This is just an absolute dog. This is the kind of guy this team needs. He's a little bit on the smaller side. He's listed at 6'2", 195, but he averaged 15.6 points per game this season, 4.3 rebounds a game, 2.8 assists a game, 1.4 steals a game on 33 minutes. He was fairly high volume. He had 11 and a half shots a game and 5.6 threes a game. So he was shooting a ton of threes, and he shot over 40%. So he is exactly what this team needs. What are you hearing about Dante Maddox?
Yeah, this is relatively new. Close to Jeremiah. You saw Jeremiah quote tweet something again and say dog, or I forget what he said this time.
He said
Dante,
Dante,
again.
all
Dante.
caps.
Yeah, that's what it was. I'm intrigued to see if Rutgers is going to. I don't know if they're going to be able to land this kind of caliber kid, to be honest. To be a shooting or a backup, maybe. I think that's tough. I think it's tough to tell these kids, like, hey, like you might be. I guess you could run a 3-guard rotation, put Ace at the 4, put Jeremiah at like a 3 role. Like Dylan's
I think
big
it would
enough.
be a 3-guard starting rotation if you get a guy like Dante Maddox.
Yeah, 15% assist rate. Really good vision. Just some of his threes, man. Like I'm watching it now. They're like well beyond the arc. Like, and he's nailing them like with ease. So I like this kid a lot. I think he'd be a really, really good. Deeper than 25. He's made 22 made threes deeper than 25 feet. Like,
wow.
That's this season, obviously, but he scores a lot on ball screens. So I mean, this kind of fits the Pikel offense too. But yeah, no, I think this would be a really good get if they could pull this one off. I don't know if they're gonna be able to pull this one off because I think this kid's gonna get guaranteed starter like minutes and guaranteed money, like significant money. I'm intrigued. I'm intrigued to see what Rutgers can do here. I'm assuming they'd probably reach out at the very least. We know we just going on Twitter follows, like one of the Rutgers coaches has already followed him. Obviously Jeremiah Williams connection, see if that works out in their favor. So yeah, no, I love this kid. I love this kid's tape too. If you guys haven't seen it, just go on YouTube. This kid's a freak.
Yeah, he is he is just the exact type of guy that Rutgers needs. And he obviously knows Jeremiah. They didn't play on the same AAU team, but they both grew up in Chicago. Still waiting to get more information on like the direct connection there, but they've known each other for a long time.
So also remember how I said Rutgers wants to push transition and all that good stuff?
Yep.
20% of his buckets come in transition.
That's a big number.
It's a huge number for a team that wants to push the pace, especially when Ace gets here, they're going to push the pace. Like,
oh yeah.
So,
additionally, he shot 57% at the rim this past season, where he took almost half of his 2-pointers. He shot 40% from the mid-range. So he does shoot a fair amount of mid-range shots. He shot about 60% of his mid-range, or 60% of his 2-point shots came in the mid-range. So maybe get that number down a bit, but he's hitting them at a pretty decent clip. So you can't really knock him for it. He's just a great shooter. And this is the kind of guy that Rutgers needed. This is the guy that archetype we outlined heading into the portal. So Pike and company have stiff competition for him, but let's hope we can pick this guy up because he'd be a huge addition.
Yeah, no, this would be ginormous. So we'll see what happens.
Another update on a target we previously talked about, Amari Williams. He is the 3-time conference defensive player of the year in the CAA, former Drexel Dragon. He has 1 year of eligibility left. He's originally from London, England. I believe he's from England. I don't know if it's London, but he's listed at 6'11", like 260. He's a big guy, great offensive skill set, great defender as well. If you watch his tape, he's got really soft touch inside the paint. He's a really good passer. What are you hearing about Amari Williams? What's the latest on him?
Yeah, so per Joey Donovan, he's going to cost a lot.
I think he posted for $600K right now. Yeah.
Yes, so that's going to be interesting. I don't know how that one's going to work out, but it does sound like Rutgers is still very much in this race. I can't speak for the money that's being brought up by like Trilly and others, but it sounds like Rutgers has a very good case here to land him. Now, we've also been told Texas, Rodney Terry, their head coach there, is enamored by his play and loves him as a player. They're pushing very hard. We talked to our Florida site. Florida has said they really haven't heard much about him, which kind of makes sense because I was looking at the Florida roster. Their big man's coming back from injury next year. He just got, I think it was like a month ago, suffered a season-ending injury. It was pretty good, and they had a backup that filled in relatively good as well. There we go. So I don't really think they're going to be much of a factor. And then in terms of Penn State, I've told you guys a couple of times, Penn State's all in on Josh Cohen, which is fine. I think that's great. But I can't imagine Rutgers losing out to Penn State because if you want to talk about NIL, Penn State's NIL for basketball is very bad. But yeah, so I think Rutgers has a legitimate shot here. And those are the 4 programs that Troy Donovan himself has mentioned. And I've done double checking with everyone, and I think they have a really good shot at a very good big man who's ranked number 2 in our portal rankings currently. That would be above the guy that they had previously in Cliff
Number
Moore.
2 overall in the portal rankings, by the way. This is the Rivals transfer portal rankings. There's only 2 5-stars in the entire portal rankings right now, at least the last time I checked. And one of them is Amari Williams. And Cliff is not far behind him. I think he's 6th overall, and he's a high 4-star. But that kind of just goes to show the level of player they're targeting in the portal to replace Cliff. Love to see it. Hopefully they reel him in, but obviously the competition is stiff, and teams with deep pockets are also interested. So we shall see how that one goes.
Anything? Another guy?
I do got one more. So the last basketball news item I had was that Rutgers lost out on one of its early targets they identified, Troy D'Amico. Troy D'Amico is the Southern Illinois basketball player who played AAU hoops with Jeremiah Williams. He ended up at DePaul. Now, it sounds like, Rutgers should have had a better opportunity to land him, but if you dig deeper into it, it kind of makes sense. So DePaul recently hired Chris Holtman, the former Ohio State basketball coach, as their new head coach, and he quickly hired the former Southern Illinois head coach as his top assistant, a.k.a. Troy D'Amico's former teammate. DePaul is in Chicago. D'Amico is from Chicago. Connect a lot of dots there. D'Amico announced a couple days ago that he was a Saluki. So shouldn't surprise anybody that we didn't land him given all those things, but I think that context is very important when talking about D'Amico.
See ya next. Get the fuck out of here. Have fun at DePaul, idiot.
Yeah, seriously.
Sorry. That's a bad one, though.
Yeah, whatever. There's plenty of fish in the sea. It is still very early. We've, what do we had the portal open for 8 days now? I do think some of us may be getting a little impatient.
Some?
I would just give, some. I'm typically somebody who gets pretty impatient too, so I hear you. But let's just see how this situation plays out. Rutgers is talking to a lot of guys right now. We've identified some of them. Probably every one we identified. There's probably 10 that the staff doesn't have get out. They're very secretive about this stuff.
Yeah.
Reported this on the boards. They sometimes will ask kids to not mention their name in these online Twitter posts where somebody says they've heard from this many schools and then they list them all. Rutgers doesn't want their name out there because they don't want to rock the boat on their current roster. Sometimes you just it's a what's up call. Sometimes it's we really need you, and so they don't want their interest to kind of get all jumbled up in the wash, because if Michael gives you a direct call and talks to you for an hour, that's a lot different than one of the assistants sending a cold DM saying what's up. Yeah, exactly.
You up?
I hope that nobody is sending those.
Looking at you, Patino.
And Mel Tucker. Jesus.
Yeah. Jeez. All right then. I find it interesting too, because people are like, "Oh no, we lost out on D'Amico. How we lose out to him on DePaul?" And it's like, well, number one, Martini is their main target at the 4. It seems like same position, same everything.
Yep.
But the other thing is some of them hype up D'Amico more than Martini, and I'm like, their numbers are almost identical, but one played in a much better league. Like the Ivy's better than I don't even know where the hell Southern Illinois is.
I think it's Missouri Valley.
That would.
Yes.
Yeah, you're right. It says they've been in 2 conferences their whole life. It's Missouri Valley and Independent, so it's one of those 2 right now. I'd have to assume it's Missouri Valley. Yeah. Don't get me wrong, they do good in that conference, but cool, I guess. But Martini's the better player. Martini's the better shooter. Martini's a 3-point threat on the number 2 most 3-point attempts in college basketball last year in terms of that team in Princeton. Yep. I think he's going to be a stud personally. And then the other name I forgot to mention too. Just because people have asked us about it, but I've said on the boards already, Jordan Derkack, See ya.
Yep.
Next. Sounds like he's probably going to end up at UConn right now. There are some other suitors involved, but UConn is heavily involved with him. So just keep an eye out for that. I don't know when that will kind of be official because they're still in the tournament a little bit. And I think that's a big reason. Personally, this is just speculation on my part for this next upcoming thing I'm about to say. Cliff Amari just announced he's not going to take official visits until after. Sort of speculation, short of what I've confirmed. UConn's making a push for him to replace Donovan Quingen, who they could just kind of like Sanago, Quingen, and then Amari, just one after another after another. So they're going to try. They're not going to be able to host him until after the tournament, obviously, because they're more than likely going to make a pretty deep run based on the shellackings they're putting together.
Yep.
So I think that's a big reason why Cliff's pushing it back too as well. But I expect Jordan Derkack to probably also wait to make an announcement until after the tournament. So keep an eye out on that. I think he's going to be UConn bound. So it does suck. You're going to lose the Colonia guard. But I think Martini's going to be on board soon too. So you're going to get some good news. You might get some bad news with the Griffith stuff. But hold out hope. You have 2 5-stars coming in. You have a top 90, I think actually might be top 75 center coming in. You're going to get transfers. There's 2,000 plus fucking guys out there from every level of the game. You're going to find dudes. Cam Spencer was a nobody when he came to Rutgers. Now he's a second-round draft pick, apparently. And playing on the best team in college basketball right now. Like, relax, patience. The 2 5-stars are what you're building around. The rest is gravy. That's it.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. I am very intrigued to see how this offseason continues to go because there's just, so many possibilities, and you just got to trust Michael and staff to sense the urgency, and it sounds like they have. And, they wouldn't have basically done what they did with the roster this offseason if they didn't understand the stakes and know what they had to do. So stage 1 of the plan is executed, and now they're working on stage 2, which is acquiring you guys. So I think we're all going to be happy by the end of this process, but we just got to let it have it play out. So that's all I got for today. Thank you again for listening. It was a bit of a supersized episode today, so you can pat the sweat off your brow. We are heading out for the day.
Or their lack thereof.
With lack thereof. Yeah, that's true. We were supposed to talk to Pat Hobbs today. We teased that yesterday. I got pushed back, but we were going to talk to him tomorrow morning. So expect the interview with Pat Hobbs in your feed tomorrow afternoon. And then on Thursday, I think we'll probably have another episode recapping what Kirk Soraka said. And any other news that happens, we'll try and get out to you ASAP in case we get any commitments or any changes in the roster.
I will say one more thing before we sign off. We do have a promo going on the site. Promo code RUSPRING24, all caps RUSPRING24. If you sign up now, you get 50% off the site for the year. So instead of paying $9.95 a month, instead of paying $100 for the year, you're paying $49 flat, or maybe $49.95, I should say, flat, and you're getting the entire year. So you're going to get coverage for not only this current transfer portal cycle, not only this current spring ball cycle, not only the next transfer portal cycle that's coming right after spring for football, not only training camp, but you're also going to get the season for football. You're going to get the season for basketball. So you sign up now. It's like the best of all worlds because this will probably get you. I mean, if you sign up now, you're kind of a little screwed because next year when they make this super deep run in an NCAA finals, you're going to have to sign up for that $9.95 again.
True.
But I mean, for the rest of it, just there's only a limited amount of those. I will say shout out to the people that have made me increase that amount a little bit because we've had a lot of signups. Like it's insane. But yeah, definitely and take advantage of that promo code. Also, if you're a student, hit me up directly. DM me on Twitter, Instagram. Email me RURICHIE@gmail. I'll give you an even better discount. Yes, we try to help out the students more. Yes, because I know what it was like. I needed all the beer money possible when I was in school, so I'm going to try to help you out with save all the beer money possible. So, hit me up if you want a little bit of a more discount. And no, if you're not a student, I'm going to find out. And there's ways around it. So just don't sign up with that.
But we thank you again for listening. This has been another edition of the Night Report podcast. Signing off.